Have you ever felt like somebody was watching you or following you? What do you do when you feel like that's happening? Do you get paranoid? I think we've all seen this happen to somebody in a movie or a TV show for doing something that they shouldn't have done. And today we're going to talk about that on the podcast. Welcome back to URL versus IRL. You're tuning into URL versus IRL. Hosted by Bree Lynch. I swear to you, I know I say this every single time that we do the podcast. I literally say, you guys, I'm so excited for today's episode. I swear to you, I am so excited for today's episode because I feel like you guys are not going to see this shit coming. Well, maybe you will because you probably read the title. We're going to be talking to a private investigator today, which is absolutely fucking wild. Welcome to my friend Will. Will, welcome to the podcast.
I just want to clarify real quick.
Yeah.
Ex-private investigator.
Very true, very true.
Not
Yes, true.
currently employed.
Not currently employed by
As that.
As that.
I do have a job.
Yeah.
My
It's
man got
just
2
not
jobs.
Leading
to
a
the podcast,
double life.
Will.
Hello. Hi.
Are you excited to be here?
I am.
You're an active listener.
I am an active listener, super fan.
Wow.
I love it.
Wow.
Hell yeah, that's so exciting. I think you're actually the first guest on a podcast that has actually listened to the episodes.
I hope my active knowledge of this does not ruin it.
Excuse me, Bree. I hope my horrible ugliness doesn't bother you.
Actually, I forgot to even tell them that you were on the podcast today. Welcome back, Josh.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah, here's
Hello, internet world. I'm back.
Josh is always back on the podcast. Low key, you're here for like almost every episode because even if you're not on mic, you're producing. So like you're there
I listen to most of them
for basically all of them.
And as far as editing, sometimes helping you edit and stuff like that goes, then yeah, I'm there. I'm there.
I'm excited for this episode today, though, because I had so many questions. The first time that you ever told me that you used to be a private investigator, I was like, what the fuck? Like, I've never met one of those in my life.
Will literally never forget the conversation. It was like when we were playing in the band together and on the way to one of the shows, you're like, oh, yeah, I used to be a pirate. Like, super dropped it into the conversation, like so nonchalant into the conversation. You were like, yeah, I was a private investigator. Everyone fucking reared their head to you and went, Will, you were a private investigator.
It's so funny because it just points to how much my personality does not align with that. That when I say it, people are like, get the fuck out of here. Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, no, I did that shit. Not for a long time, but I did it.
God.
Oh my God, that's crazy. So, first question, how the hell do you become a fucking private investigator? Like, what?
Yeah, dude, like,
So-
what inspired that?
So, disclaimer, because everything, obviously, I'm going to talk about is very personal experience. Like,
Yes.
I don't have much of an overview type of view of it, of like, oh, this is how everyone becomes a private investigator. Because,
Right.
like, my shit was entry level.
Oh,
like,
dude, I feel like we jumped into this like knowing that it was going to be very generalized.
Oh,
Yeah.
So, all right.
I didn't even know there were levels to this shit.
I mean, all right. So, to set the scene.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead. Paint the picture.
This was about 10 years ago. I was in a job that was paying enough to pay for school, but was, for all intents and purposes, a dead-end job.
Oh, okay.
And my major was English. My minor was criminology. And I had actually thought about pursuing police work for a little bit. Like, I literally applied for state police. I got there. Someone yelled at me, and I was like, no, thank you. No, like, I was dealing with a lot of personal shit at the time. It was not the best time to make a great career move.
Yeah, big career change.
So, and I kind of had the thought, like, I was like, oh, I kind of want to pursue something in law enforcement. Not really sure. That was very, like, state troopers it's like a very militaristic organization.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, you know all about
just
that.
not my vibe.
A lot of people, family, friends. My dad were state troopers, so like, I know the whole.
You know the fucking vibes.
The whole vibes.
And it's funny because private investigation is, predominant. I mean, not even predominantly. It is a type of law enforcement, but it's such a different vibe.
Like a subsector.
Yeah, because you go from a job that is, like, as a cop, you would be so structured. You have all these specific rules you have to follow. You have a code of conduct. Private investigator, at least, like, the way it's portrayed, and I guess what attracted me to it is, wanted to be a spy. I wanted to be cool. I
Yeah.
wanted to be like the fly on the
wow.
wall.
Genuinely?
You know?
Yeah.
Like that's what appealed to me about it was being able to operate in like a gray area space where I was sort of law enforcement, but I sort of wasn't. But I'll get into why that also made me feel kind of scummy, and I did not like it.
Oh, T.
Actually-
Okay.
You know what? I know that we had a couple of our followers write in and ask some questions. And
Yeah.
something that somebody asked was, do you have to work for the government or can you work for a private sector?
So my job, and this will kind of go into the first question a little bit too,
Cool.
which
Yeah.
I found an ad on Indeed as hilarious
Naturally.
as that sounds. So like you want to talk about qualifications, most of the people like, because that's the other thing. It's not a very social job. You spend most of your day by yourself. You're not like talking to too many people. I actually did meet a friend who was a successful private investigator, loved the job, did it for many years, but that was the only experience I had talking to someone else about it because that's the whole private part of it.
Right.
But yeah, as far as getting into it, I answered an Indeed ad. The guy who hired me under his license.
Oh.
So he had a license to operate in the tri-state area, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So you have, I guess at that level, I was operating basically on the merit of his name and his company. So like I myself was really only a private investigator attached to him. I wasn't like taking on jobs myself. Like most of the times when you see it portrayed in movies, media, whatever, it's like this it always strikes me as like the person who was a little too loose cannon to be a cop, and then they kind of have this vigilante-esque persona.
Yeah, they like go up to someone and they're like, put this gun in your mouth.
Yeah, I mean, anyway. So
Moving on.
thinking about it that way, like my boss had been that guy at one point,
Okay.
but had graduated into the point of having his own company and operating under his own set of rules. Like, and that's the thing too, for such a adjacent job to a law enforcement job, the amount of training I got, like, it was very loosey-goosey. Like,
Really?
so I guess to answer your question, as far as like government agencies, like I'm sure there's very many levels of how you can get into it and the amount of experience you need based on the profile of the cases you're dealing with. Like when I say entry level, like the types of cases I was dealing with is basically the jobs I was handed are, hey, this company suspects such and such employee of basically being fraudulent on their disability claim. So like say you get hurt at work, they would hire me, or rather they would hire my boss to then, I guess, mitigate to me to go watch you in your day-to-day while you're not working, and then videotape you doing various activities that either pertain to the nature of your injury. So like if you break your wrist on the job and then you're walking around opening doors willy-nilly, I was there to videotape
To
you.
report that.
And so that's kind of where it's kind of that gray area of operating within the law. Because like as a police officer who's investigating, like depending on whether or not you're, you know, in cover, plain clothes, whatever. But if you're a uniformed police officer, there's a code of conduct. Like you have to let a person know that you're a police officer. You have to
Right.
be a certain amount of forthright with your intentions and everything. For me, it was just I was plain clothes in my, you know, regular car, going around, and you know, I looked at it as the least amount of contact I actually have with this person, the better. Like I literally want them to not know I was there. And my boss
didn't even give you like a car to drive around in?
no.
That's
so
dangerous, because what if somebody like thinks that you're following them and then decides to follow you back to your house?
So So I think I did explain this to you off camera the other day, but I I used to drive like a shitty old CRV. I shouldn't say shitty. It was a hand-me-down from my mom. I love that car. I wish I still had it, but it was a 2005, so it was starting to go down. Yeah. But got the windows tinted, and I was given basically like a per diem for food because you're on the go the entire time.
Yeah.
And then they reimburse you. I think at the time it was maybe like 50 to 60 cents on the dollar per mile or something like that. And you would just log your miles like you would do for any kind of job that you travel.
Oh, okay.
Like I travel for my job now, and it's kind of the same deal. They give you like a mileage percentage. But yeah, and at the time, this was like 10 years ago, it was starting at like $17 an hour, which at the time I was like, oh, wow, that's great. It's more money than like it was around the same amount of money that I was making at the job I was telling you about. But it was the other one was dead end. And I didn't know at the time that this one was probably also dead end. But yeah,
because you didn't do it for a while.
No.
They were paying $17 a fucking hour.
Yeah.
God.
For a fucking PI
To put your life on the line too. Like that's the crazy thing is like even though it seems more like minor when you're like, oh yeah, like if someone lied on their disability claim, then like of course like all I'm having to do is film them and like what harm could they do to me? But you don't know how people are going.
You don't know how people are going to react.
No,
some people could be very reactive and just pull a gun on you for looking at them the wrong way.
And it stands to note that I, not licensed to carry or anything. That wasn't a part of the job.
Oh my God.
And I mean, my personal thinking of it was even if I were to bring like a knife, taser, whatever, that just kind of solidified in my mind. I'm like, well, if I have it, I'm more likely to use it. So I'd rather not have it. And if I can avoid any kind of situation, just run away, get to safety, like that's how I would have rather handled any kind of confrontation.
So what... If you're allowed to talk about it, what
I mean, I'm not mentioning
not doing it now.
anything.
Yeah. And I wasn't even sure if they made you sign like an NDA of any kind of
this
sorts.
was like 10 years ago. I don't remember names.
Cool. Right.
So
Cool. Total. Perfect. What could you walk us through? Like, what could the training look like for someone who's trying to get into this? Because like if you're saying it's like a sub level of like government sector type work and everything like that in some facet, because there's probably a more higher government factor to this, like if you're in the FBI or CIA or anything like that, or
he was working for a private
or
person,
NSA.
not even for the government specifically.
So a private sector.
Private sector.
What would the training look like? Does it look like basic training, or does it look like a police academy style training, which is also kind of like a more sub form of like basic training in a way? What does that look like training wise?
So the training is very hands-on, but there's no physical expectation of you really, if that makes sense. So like, it's mostly a driving job. Okay. Like you're going to spend 98% of your day in your car.
Relatable for me.
Exactly. You'd be perfect for it. But the thing, so like a day of training, like my first days of training started with my boss, and then he eventually had me training with other guys under his employ. So my first day with him, we had this target who lived on a street in Camden.
That's wild. You call them targets.
Yeah. I mean, it's target. I forget what the name for it was. That's kind of an aggressive word. The person we were following.
I like target.
Let's just say person of interest.
Yeah, person of interest.
Yeah.
So
POI. POI.
So like, and this is what's wild about it too. Like, because I'll keep harping on this point. Entry level.
Yeah.
Like,
Gotcha.
Because I assume at certain levels of this job, like the profile that you're given of this person to start out is a lot more complete than what I had. And I think it was a matter of just him using it as a training point too, because it's, he would give me a name and maybe a Facebook profile to like find a picture of this person. And I'm like, okay. So like from the jump, I'm just like, I know you got more information than this. Cause like this is a company approaching you to follow this person.
Right.
So like if they had compiled that already, they would give me like a file with the person's name, age, date, name, age range, like known addresses, a picture if they had it.
That's what I was going to ask
Probably
too, to kind
where
of
they worked.
kind of piggyback. I know I don't want to like step on your feet if you had more questions
No, there
for
was
him.
no
but
employment information given out.
Oh shit.
Because that's
shit.
completely irrelevant to what I was doing. It's really just me proving to the company that, again, I don't know the company that they work for. I only know their information.
I was going to say,
he probably does know all that information because he dealt with them as part of his job as the head of the agency. But I was in no place to know any of that information.
Oh, so it was like a need to know. So that was going to be two of my questions, kind of to piggyback. What did like resource gathering look like? Because you already mentioned video and film and everything like that. Like you had a camera and everything.
Yeah.
Did you have case files? Were these case files like blocked off by like security clearances?
Okay.
And everything of that sort? Were they blocked off by like confidential levels or security clearance levels or anything of that nature? Like,
So-
was there a need to know or not need to know?
I was going to say need to know is very much the right phrase for it because he was the complete controller of information. It was very much, this is the case file, read up the night before, and then, do all the research you need to do, and then you're getting to it at like 5 a.m. the next morning.
Holy shit.
So
crap.
that actually leading it to, so like I'll go through like a day of training.
Cool.
Okay.
Which will also kind of go through like a day-to-day one, because I did do a few cases on my own. So like day of training, at least the first couple days we would meet up at the office. It would be a little later in the day because he wasn't yet having me start that early. And most of the time that was going to be with somebody he had already opened a case on.
Okay.
So if it's somebody brand new that you don't know their habits or where they're going or anything like that, you would be there at like the crack of dawn to like watch this person start their day to kind of get an idea of their patterns. And
wow.
So like when I started with him the first day, and he was pointing out to me a bunch, because again, you got to remember I'm like 23 at this point, fresh out of college, not much life experience yet. So, he takes me to Camden, and like I'd been to Camden, and anybody who lives in New Jersey, it's a place that you're told about.
Yeah.
For reasons,
Yeah, definitely.
So we go to this place, and it's a street where certain activities happen. And he's pointing out to me, like, that guy on the corner is there for a reason. Those guys in the house that are watching us right now are there for a reason. All just to say, like, be wary of your surroundings when you're going anywhere, but especially here. Because as much as the job of a private investigator, like, we were driving around in a normal-ass minivan. But it's just like...
It's a good way to stay, like, covert.
But you don't want to underestimate the people that you're around, even if they're not the people you're following, because he was telling me, like, I didn't notice it, again, because I was a young kid at the time, but he's telling me to look around because he's like, these guys clocked us the minute we drove in here. Like, people are not dumb. So, like, it actually affected the amount of time we were there because he was like, it's probably unsafe if we continue staying here.
Definitely.
But basically, like, my first day of training, we got there, let's say, 7, 8 a.m., because I remember it being, like, right around the time kids were getting picked up from school, or getting picked up for school, rather. So a bunch of people are, starting their day, going outside, going for walks. We're waiting for this specific guy. I think he's, like, smoking a cigarette out on his front porch or something. So we're like, okay, cool, got him, identified him based on the picture and the name we're given, the address and everything. Relatively straightforward way to start. And again, like, my boss picked this case because it was a good case for me to get a sense of, get that in my head to be aware of my environment in that way. And also just somebody he already had enough information on where it wasn't like throwing me to the wolves, like fresh start. Like, I don't even know what this person looks like yet. And again, all the cases I dealt with were people that got injured at work, and then it was disability claims. So this guy had a job that he got injured at. He hadn't been working at the time, and the company was paying him and I to just see, like, what is this guy doing with his time that he can't come back to work, that sort of thing.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So I followed this guy for probably about 6 to 8 hours doing, like, so he starts his morning, smokes on the porch, and then immediately is driving around town doing a seemingly random set of things, just visiting friends, hanging out, whatever. Like, he went to one friend who had, like, a bunch of cars out front, and I think he was, like, working on them a little bit, and then he went to one guy to, like, look at a couch that he was getting rid of, and that was of particular interest because it's like, oh, this guy has some sort of injury. Is he helping him lift the couch, move the couch, put it in a truck, take it to somebody else, like that sort of thing. Basically, the two things we were looking for is, like, is this person doing something that they have told their job they can't do because of injury, or are they doing something to make money on the side? Because that would be, I guess, from the company's eyes, like, unfair or unhonorable or whatever, or grounds for termination at that point.
Gotcha.
So that was the first case was very much that. So we followed this guy, probably, like I said, 6 to 8 hours, made like 2 or 3 trips around the neighborhood, around the town. And then finally, when he got settled back in at home, is when my boss said to me, like, I think those guys are kind of onto us, so I'd rather get out of here before any sort of confrontation might happen or anything like that.
Did your boss tell you to, like, stay far away from people and try to be a fly on the wall, or no?
So I remember him saying specifically to me, because, like, this is where from the jump I had some red flags, which I'll get into, but this was one of them, because, you know, he had experience, he was seasoned at this, and he was to the point in his career where he legitimately, quote unquote, told me, you know, I just like seeing how close I can get to these people without them knowing. And I'm like, cool, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
He was really trying to push the envelope.
Yeah.
So, like, what would you do in that situation at that case? Like, would you just, like, move on to another case
So
day by day if, like, someone caught on to you, and then, or you just gave it some time and then revisited?
So it's a weird gray area, because I had one case where I'm like 90% sure that the guy made me or knew I was following him.
He made me.
But it was because I'm, like, colossally unsubtle. It was I was not built for this. So, and this was an interesting case too. This was not my last, but probably like my second to last case. And this was one where I had probably the least amount of information that I was given to start a job. So I had this guy's name and I had like 5 addresses. And my boss was like, I need you to go to every single address, stick around for a couple of hours, see if he shows his face. And if not, you have to, like, instigate.
Okay.
So
Instigate.
knocking on doors, like,
Oh, shit.
yeah,
Oh, like, you actually
Try
had
to
to
come in contact.
intervene.
yes. So this guy had like 3 or 4 properties, I guess, in Philly, and then another house in Delaware.
Okay.
So I go to, like, these 3 or 4 houses in Philly, crickets. Finally get to Delaware. It's like 1:00 in the afternoon. I started at like 5 a.m. Told my boss I'm having no luck. Like, I knocked on this door, and again, crickets. So I go back to my car. I call my boss. I'm like, he's not fucking here. Like, I don't know what to do. And then as I'm talking to him, garage door opens up, car peels out, and I'm like, okay, never mind. Got to call you back. Like, he's going. So as he's, you know, coming out, because it's quick too. Like, I was almost startled. I'm like, all right, I got to get my shit together, like, because I was ready to pack it in for the day. And then all of a sudden he's coming out. I'm like, nope, gotta go. So, like, I'm again colossally unsubtle, keeping an eye on him. We make eye contact as he drives past me. And I don't know if it's just some comment. I probably spooked him, because he's like, what the fuck is this kid doing watching me and like knocking on my door and shit. So we make eye contact, and I'm like, he knows. But I can't turn around. Like, I can't just go home now.
Yeah.
So I have to, he ends up like going to the liquor store.
You should have been like, I'm here to sell you solar panels.
Yeah, literally, just like,
I went off on a kid for
sir,
doing that
do
shit
you
to me
have
the
a
other
minute
day.
for our Lord
Literally,
and Savior Jesus Christ?
oh
My Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
So yeah, I follow him to the liquor store, and again, in the parking lot, at this point, he's like hella spooked because, you know, we made eye contact on his road, and then here I am at the liquor store. He's like, oh, this isn't an accident. Like, you're not also just going out to buy shit.
Yeah.
And at that point, like, I'm having a panic attack. I call my boss. I'm like, he's on to me.
Hyperventilating?
Yeah, like, he's on to me. I'm like, and, you know, not thinking about it, like, because I don't want to get into any altercation. Like, this is the last thing I want is for him to be like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
Yeah,
get away
dude.
from me.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's like, because like you said, you never know how somebody's going to react. And I
Totally.
mean, he was an older gentleman. This poor old guy probably just scared the shit out of him because I'm
Yeah.
not small. Like,
Right, yeah.
and he's probably just like, well, what the fuck does this kid want from me? Because that's kind of the, like, to your question, Josh, as far as like getting into that, I never got into the point where somebody was actually like saying to me, like, why are you following me? What are you doing? Like, what is this? And as far as, like, so one of the procedures we would have at the start of a job is to call the local police department
Oh.
and let them know, like, hey, this is my name. This is the company I'm working for, whose license I'm operating under. I'm going to be in your area today, just as a heads up. Because, I mean, you know, that guy had grounds to call the police and be like, yo,
I
weirdo's
feel like I'm
fucking
being followed.
following me.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
So I'm glad you answered that because I
Yeah.
was gonna ask that at some
I
point.
was
But yeah,
also going to
yeah,
ask,
yeah,
but you just answered, do you need a license? But you were operating under the other guy's
Right.
license. Okay, got it.
So that was part of it that felt a little weird to me, and I wish I had talked to more people in the field to confirm, like, is this a normal thing? Is this, you know, something that you guys had to do for a while before you, you know, work up to get your own license and everything?
Yeah.
Because it felt a little sketchy. But at the time, like I said, I was 23. This was like what I thought I wanted to do.
It's
I was
also
like,
a private company, so I
fine.
feel like it's a
You know?
rational fear to have that a
Yeah.
private company is like like you could assume that they'd probably be doing shady shit,
Yeah.
you know, and you just you don't want to get yourself in the fray of that.
Right. And it's kind of that thinking of like the size of the company, what they can get away with, because there are less eyes on the procedures as far as what they're doing.
I got you. I got you.
Yeah. So that's the start of that, at least.
Well, but I feel like before we, I want to ask this before I know Bree has probably a lot more questions too.
I was so invested in the story.
I know I was too. So I wanted to ask this because I don't know how many cases. First off, how many cases did you do work on?
I think so. While I was training, I think I did 4 or 5, and then when I was on my own, I think I only did like 2 or 3.
What was your most like memorable one? Like what was like the biggest one?
So I had 2 days where I was following the same guy in different scenarios, and I think other than the guy I just described who made me, which that was a panic attack in and
Right,
of itself.
I want to know how that ended.
Literally, I called my boss and I was like, I think he made me, and I don't feel comfortable pushing this any further.
Yeah.
And he was like, all right, well, pack it in. Like, I basically got nothing done that day, you know, like.
I got you.
And
You had a panic attack. so
well,
there's
yeah.
that.
I mean,
It's a lot, dude. It's a lot. Yeah.
so this other guy,
Yeah.
and just to give you a descriptor, as far as like big dude, probably like 250 pounds of muscle,
Oh my.
easily
We'll call him
6 foot
Mr.
something,
Muscle.
Mr. Muscle.
Yeah.
So he was a construction worker who got injured on the job, but then, and again, I think this was another open case file, but this was one of the ones that the first time I watched him, I was with one of my trainers who wasn't my boss, but was another one of the seasoned guys there who had probably been doing it for like a year or 2, maybe like 3 years. Cause I don't know how long, I forget how long he said he was there, but, he's a pretty chill guy, pretty normal guy. Like,
like it.
Yeah.
didn't make me as nervous as my boss did, because I feel like that's kind of relatable for any job. It's like you're hanging around your boss, you're like, how serious are you going to be about like everything? And especially in this line of work, it's like, I'm expecting you to be really like hard and fast rules, like, you know, whereas the other guy was like, dude, it is not that serious. Like, you're just in your car all day.
$17 an hour, brother.
Like, you're literally. So, all right. So the first time I watched this guy was actually one of the coolest jobs that I did, because it was like it affords you certain advantages when you are allowed to get creative with the job. So like this guy was, like I said, out on injury, but he had like he worked on cars, and he also, I don't know if he raced cars or if he just owned, like he may have at one point been building a car, but he was trying to sell parts at the raceway. So
damn, he sounds like me. Sounds like me in my helmet hair life.
So
are you following me?
Mr. Muscle. So day starts at this guy's house. We follow him. He picks up his car. And I mean, like, this guy had a quote unquote back injury from a construction job, and then he's like lifting a trailer hitch, putting it onto his truck.
Those
like,
motherfuckers are heavy.
Like he's fine for all intents and purposes.
Right.
So we follow him to the raceway, and the way the raceway was set up was really cool, because on the track side, there were bleachers that faced across to this lot where people were setting up shop to sell parts, sell other things, sell whatever, like sell merchandise, I assume. So we had like a beeline right across the racetrack to where this guy was set up to sell stuff. And I just filmed him literally sitting, watching cars race for like 3 to 4 hours. And that was my day.
Because you could just act like you were filming the cars.
Literally. And I mean, I just had the camera just trained on him. And I literally was just watching cars, because I was like, this is great. This is all great footage I'm getting. I don't even need to pay attention.
Yeah. Go off.
And I mean, I'm watching cars go, and I'm shooting the shit with my trainer. It was
I
like
just
the best
imagine it
day
getting
on
to the point where like Will's boss calls him and goes, "Yo, how's the case going?" And Will goes,
Yeah.
and then Will goes, "The case."
The case?
Yeah.
Oh, the case.
The case.
Oh,
right,
yeah. He's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, the poison. The poison for Cusco. Cusco's poison?
Too funny.
What poison?
What poison?
The poison. But yeah, so that was the coolest day on the job. And I would say the most uncoolest day on the job.
The least cool
we
day.
get the extra.
So this was same guy, and I think this actually was my first case by myself.
Oh boy.
So I had already opened the file on this guy, already knew a decent amount about him, and set up at his house again. Like, I had already known where it was. Again, got there ass crack of dawn, and it was like a 2-hour drive from where I lived. So I'm going to this guy's house like 2 hours. So I'm up at like 3 a.m. getting down to this guy's house for $17.
Not $17.
Wow.
Also, I'd be like, give me a fucking rental car. I don't want somebody following me.
I would have been like, I'm waking up before 3 a.m. Give me time and a half.
Well, so the funniest thing about that too is, like, not to get off topic, but like I had jobs when I would have jobs in Philly, they would be like, oh, we'll take your front license plate off so you blend in more, so it just looks like a normal Pennsylvania car, even though I have a Jersey plate on there. So my dumbass gets over to Pennsylvania and then decides to try and take my plate off, and who shows up next to my car is a police officer being like, is that your car? And I'm like, yeah, it's just loose. Like, I just made up some lie, just be like, yeah, it was like falling off while I was driving, so I'm just tightening it back up.
Yeah.
You know, good to
Sayonara.
go.
Yeah,
Not doing anything weird.
It was falling
here.
off while I was taking it off. It was unscrewing.
Yeah.
Something.
I feel like also, like, they should have been able to give you a company plate. A company license plate to put on your car.
There
and then
are
if a
so
cop
many
pulls
things
you over,
they should have been able to do.
yeah, like if a cop pulls you over, you should have been able to like show them your real license plate and like, look, listen, I have literally this letter from my job. This is their company thing, whatever. So somebody can't fucking follow me.
Right.
Again, like there ain't no. I'm not built for this shit. You don't understand the way I would be telling my boss what the fuck is going to go down if I'm going to accept this job for $17 an hour.
I would have been like, I ain't built for these streets, boss. I ain't.
And I mean, at the time, again, I'm like 23. I'm just so green.
I got you.
I got summer child. Like,
oh my God.
And I was just like, yeah, that seems fair. Like, and it's so funny because like I talked to my dad about it, and he was like, you want to do what?
Yeah.
And like eventually he was like, all right, I mean, this is what you want to do. This is what you kind of went to school for, which that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, so like I was just like, all right, I'm locked the fuck in. Like, let's go. And all right, so for this guy specifically, second time I'm watching him, go down to his place. He's like down Shore Points, like South Jersey.
Oh my God.
So I drive, 2-ish hours to get down there. I hear like roosters. Like it's so early.
Oh my God. Wait, Short Point. Were you near like Egg Harbor, Cape May?
Like Cape May.
Cape May. Okay.
So
not Jersey Shore.
Oh yeah.
T-shirts.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So he lives like on this weird back dead end road. So that's the other thing too, is like you don't really think about when you're just like parking your car in a place where you're not supposed to be. Like, how do you blend in? Like, because especially a small neighborhood like that, like people are gonna be like, who the fuck is that? Like, why are you getting here now? Like, what are you doing? So, I mean, most people are asleep. So I kind of, slipped in quietly, got myself set up. So basically, perfect setup, especially with tinted windows on your car, is you want to be facing, not filming out the back of the car, filming out the front of the car.
Right.
And I had a couple situations where it was like seats down, I'm laying prone, like,
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you're just sitting there like this, it's like, all right, like if they are up, are just looking at you, like, what the fuck is that guy doing?
Yeah.
But at least if you're like laying prone in the car, like it doesn't appear that anybody's sitting in the front seat, and like your windows are tinted so people can't see in the side or anything. But so for this guy specifically, show up. It's like I think at this point it was like a Friday. I mean, it didn't really matter because he wasn't working. I felt like it was a weekend because I was like, oh, he's just running errands. But again, these people are not working while I'm watching them.
Yeah.
So I follow him to like some like, I guess like a mom and pop like storage area, like one of those down the shore storage areas that you see.
Yeah.
And because it wasn't like a what's like the branded orange one like around us that they're like everywhere. It wasn't one of those where there's like a check-in or anything like that.
Right.
And I mean, even if there was, the way I was able to follow this guy onto the property of this storage facility, because that's another thing too, is like you're following these people. They're not just like hanging around in the wilderness. Like you can't, like they're going onto properties where you shouldn't be. They're going into buildings and stuff. Like
especially if they're like unemployed for the time being. Like they're living their best life. They're going around places.
Like
and
there
stuff,
are obstacles to you following them.
Yeah.
So he goes into this storage area where I guess he had set up a garage to work on cars out of. Mm-hmm. So, me and my my athletic self at the time, I was like, oh, there's a hole in the fence. Cool. I'm going to trespass.
Oh my God, no.
Because
Will,
rather than, pull my whole ass car into this place and have to interact with another human being to justify me being there.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a storage unit there, obviously. I don't know anything, I didn't have the forethought to even be like, oh, well, maybe I could get a tour, like look at some of your sizes or whatever, like what kind of storage units you offer. I was like, no, I'm going to hop the fence. And the way this place was set up, it was like the entrance was on the far side. You make a left-hand turn into it. And then there are a bunch of units over here where people were keeping, like, because it was also like just a yard. So like people had boats on trailers and shit and like a bunch of like just junk and whatever out there. So he's in like the middle row. So there's really no way for me to like be anywhere close enough to film him and actually be seen in this place. Because he's in the middle row. So he's got his doors facing this way. There's another row. It's just this very narrow, long like hall of doors, and the only spot that I could get where I could remain unseen by him or anybody else in this storage unit, there was just like a little patch of woods in between like the A section of it where the entrance was and like the B section of it where there was like just bigger units and like a yard. So I hop this fence. I'm in sweatpants and like a t-shirt and a hoodie because it's I think it's like November or something at this point. It was getting cold.
Okay.
But it's relevant because I'm, filming just literally the edge of the door, just watching this guy walk in and out with tools and like so there's really I'm not getting quality footage by any means.
No,
like,
you're not acting like me out there.
No. But I'm also like I'm not trying to get close to this guy because it would be like a Popeye situation of just like boom and I'd be dead. Like talk about somebody you did not want to make you is this guy.
God.
So, I'm watching him and I don't know if there was some sort of back entrance or I was just tired because I'm laying prone in the wet, cold woods watching this guy. All of a sudden, he dips, and the only thing I see is his truck pulling out the opposite side. Meanwhile, I had parked my car, walked down the road, hopped this fence, and I'm sitting there. So I book it back to my car just to realize that I do not have my keys.
No. Did you lose them?
I kept them on a carabiner that was very not attached to my sweatpants that I mentioned earlier.
No.
Because I was laying in like the woods.
Dude, what?
So
with no belt loop.
What?
So
no belt loop.
I ran back, grabbed my keys, and by this time he's fucking gone.
He's gone.
Yeah, he's
So, like,
5-10 minutes. Yeah.
So then I have to call my boss with my tail between my legs, like, hey, I lost him. And this was the first of like three conversations that we were going to have that would eventually end this job for me.
Yeah.
Was because this was the first time his frustration with me was really showing. Because like when I first met him, he had a certain vibe. He's of a certain age. He's like
Your boss, yeah.
Yeah. So he had a bit of a short fuse and like a certain expectation of me that I was clearly not meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, all right, well, go back to his fucking house and start all over again. I guess like that was basically his vibe with it.
Yikes.
So I'm like, cool. I love being talked to like that. So
yeah, we love it.
So I go back to the guy's house. He's not there.
Of course not.
I hang out for like an hour. Still not there. Go back to the I think I go back to the makeshift shop that he was working out of the storage area. And I forget if I found him there or if I then doubled back to his house and he was there, but somehow I caught back up to him and then ended up following him for another like hour or so throughout the day. And he made like, I think it was just like a trip to a friend's house in a neighborhood, like an adjacent neighborhood. Nothing of substance, really.
Yeah.
No way for me to save the day after I colossally fucked up already.
Oh, man.
So again, same guy, one of the coolest jobs and one of the worst jobs, which was like one of the three straws to me ending this career early.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So what do you think the worst part about the job was? Or let's do like best and worst part of the job.
Best part, because especially in a work environment, I love being left the fuck alone.
Yeah.
I love my solitude. I like to work at my own pace. The only caveat to that with this job is you're not working to your own pace. You're working to the pace of the person you're following.
Right.
So like if they have a busy day, lock the fuck in because you're along for the ride.
I would be so boring to watch. I literally sit at home all day. Sometimes I'll go to Target or the coffee shop and work on my laptop.
So if I were to be watching you through the day like that, by halfway through the day, I'd be knocking on your door with like some kind of story like, oh, I lost my dog or something, just to like identify that you were there and that I'm actually like gonna see you at some point.
That makes me even more skeptical about opening the door. I was just talking to Josh about this like last week because we had some guy come over here talking about, I'm spraying all the houses to get rid of ants and spiders, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, brother, I am not the one today. I was like, I am not the fucking one. Yeah. He's like, oh, I'm working with your neighbor John down the street. And I was like, we're not doing that shit here.
John.
Yeah, I was like, we're not doing that shit here. Anyways, I tried to tell him to fuck off and he didn't want to listen to me.
Yeah.
And I ended up closing the door in his face.
Josh is like, I know John. He's a nice guy.
No, I did not mean to cut you off. But for the record, I don't think either of us have a reason for people to private investigate us.
That's fair.
No.
Legally, but it's just so annoying to have these solicitors come by.
No, we literally bought a no soliciting sign because that shit was pissing me off so much. So anyway, so I tell this guy, I'm like telling him like, no, we're not interested, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He's like, well, are you the homeowner? I was like, no, but the homeowner's not home. I rent here. You know what I'm saying? So basically, fuck off, leave me alone.
Yeah.
And so I close the door and then he's like, comes back and knocks again.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, when is the homeowner going to be home? And I was like, I don't know. I rent here. Basically, like, you don't know if I'm just renting somebody's house. You don't know if I live with the homeowner, whatever.
Yeah.
Then he goes, well, are you the decision maker in this household? And I was like, not
You're asking
really.
a lot of questions.
I was like, not really. So then he's like, well, when's the decision maker going to be here? I was like, first of all, my relationship is not fucking like that. If you don't leave, you are lucky you're dealing with me and you're not dealing with him. Oh my gosh. That made me so mad. Anyways, that makes me even more skeptical about opening the door because first of all, like as a woman, like I don't want you to fucking know that I'm here by myself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But like that's crazy that you would actually have to go up to people and knock on their fucking door. What if they just don't answer? What if they look through the blinds and they're just like,
I was going to say that's what happened with the Delaware guy.
Oh shit.
Because I know he at least heard me knocking.
Yeah.
Because the timing of it was too close where it's like, you know, I just knocked on your door and you're like, unless you're already in your garage, car started, but that shit was not. Like it was off. Like it was silent. So I know he heard me. And then probably saw me through the window, was like, who the fuck is that guy? Waited for me to leave and then left. Even if I just, you know, had interrupted plans he already made to leave the house. It was just awkward timing.
Yep. That's what I'm going to start doing to people. I'm going to be like, I'm late for an appointment. I got to go.
Yeah.
I'm literally just going to get my keys and fucking drive around the goddamn block. I swear to God.
Oh my God.
That's my next way of doing this.
I feel like I lost the question though.
No, I was just saying that's wild that you had to go up to people's doors and knock and stuff like that. But you're saying that's what happened with the Delaware guy.
So that's what I wanted to touch on because they did give us like he gave me a couple like basic stories to go with, and you know I'm panicking. I'm not as creative as I would like to be. So I went with him. Like one was he was literally like, yeah, just have like a picture of a cute dog on your phone, even if you don't have a dog of your own, and just be like, I need help, you know, like I need help finding my dog. Like, do you live around here? Are you familiar with the area? Like any kind of information you can glean from them from asking stupid questions about this made up fucking scenario.
Oh my God.
Another one, which this happened on the job that I finally decided I was like, nah, I can't do this anymore. He would give you this like bogus envelope that you would have to like knock on the door and either pretend like, hey, I'm your neighbor down the street. I think our mail got mixed up. Are you like this person? Or something like that to basically get them to be like, yes, that's me. Almost as if you were like serving them papers, which I wasn't, but it was just so like skeevy. I hated it. And it just felt like, especially because I wanted to be that person that was completely out of sight. Like, and I wanted to have the authority to be like, no, they didn't come out today. Fuck that. Like, they're fine. They're vibing. Everything's great.
Right.
You know, like, if they don't come out, fine. It's no skin off my back. I still got paid for the day.
Right.
Like,
$17 an hour.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
I still can't get past that. That's not shit. That sucks.
So that is also a reason. One of the reasons why I left is because it's that pay for a completely unpredictable day, because my schedule was based on
the person
and my boss being like, oh, you're going to work tomorrow. I got this case for you. Or, oh, you can be off tomorrow. So it wasn't even like I
Oh,
had.
goodness gracious. So
know.
you didn't really have like a consistent and steady schedule
No.
at all times?
I know what that's like.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And I mean, this was, to put it in context, like this is definitely a job for a single person.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be successful in this job, you have to be very self-reliant. You don't want too much going on in your life that'll get disrupted from the kind of schedule you're going to have.
Right.
And like I was with my now partner, we were still pretty early on. I think at this point we were either we were already married and we were looking for an apartment, or we were about to be married. But either way, we were still like just about to start like moving in together.
Gotcha.
So like there was a lot of stuff that I had to worry about and like be around for my partner that I was just like, well, now I got this job where I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm working tomorrow, but if I'm not, like we can hang out, on top of their own work schedule,
So that's already hard to navigate.
Yeah.
And I'm sure then you can't even really communicate that much when you're at work either,
No.
I'm sure. Yeah, because if you fucking look down at your phone, the person's gone.
Right. So that's the other thing too, is there's a lot more like office work type stuff, I think, that more than people would maybe expect, I guess, based on the loosey-goosey description of how I got into it.
Well, also, like, what we see in movies and shit, like, we just see people dress as however they're dressed, and they have to get as close to this person as possible, even in, like, Ginny and Georgia, where the guy gets in a whole-ass relationship with someone that's close to her, just trying to get the information on her. And then when she figures him out, he's like, I don't give a fuck. Like, and he's just like, I don't care. Like, I'm gonna wild,
fucking insane.
I
think that's how I figured out that you used to be a PI. Is I think we talked about it because of that show.
Because we watched the show.
Because we bonded over that show. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
So the craziest thing, because I, especially thinking about it this way, I'm such a one-track mind kind of person for the most part. Like there are certain things I can multitask on. But this was one where I was like, I can't do both of these things at the same time. So like I had my gear, which was just like a normal video camera. I had like a up close and personal, like disguised camera, like it almost looked like an old flip phone or something,
like
but
yeah.
I had a laptop, and then I had like a notebook, like I had my binder with like my case notes and everything. But the workload and the workflow that was expected was, as you're watching the person that you're currently on case for, you, in order to be successful at the job and keep up with the workflow, because again, you don't know when your next day off is necessarily going to be, is you're working on the report from the day before while you're recording the person in the current day. And it's like you have to kind of do it off of memory and then basically double check yourself off of the footage you have.
Oh my god. So much.
I would be using voice notes like no tomorrow.
It's just that's so much to expect for, and I know we keep harping on the pay, but for such little fucking pay.
Yeah.
Like, and your degree was in, not that it's
English
relevant,
and minor in
criminal justice, right?
No, it's
criminology.
Criminology.
Which I think is just an offshoot.
I didn't know if that was a word that I was making up or not. I thought you said criminology.
I think depending on the college you go to, it's like the same thing.
So
they just call it a different program of some sort.
It wasn't, now that I'm thinking about it too, because again, 10 years ago, I'm lucky if I remember what I had for lunch yesterday.
Yeah.
That is so real of you.
So
criminology, as I remember it, was more the study of what creates criminal behavior, so more of the psychology aspect of criminal behavior than the actual like criminal justice side of it. It was definitely part of the curriculum, but it was more of a look at like what are the factors that create criminal activity, like what does poverty have to do with it, like, which was more interesting to me than the criminal justice aspect of it. I was like, I don't care about that shit.
Right. Yeah,
Do you feel like the fact that you studied criminology helps you get this job, or was this guy just looking for anybody that would take it?
So he wasn't looking for anybody that would take it, because that was a red flag in the very beginning of this process that, well, There were like 3 red flags off the jump. So I interviewed
But red's your favorite color. So
oh my God.
No, I'm kidding.
I interviewed in a Dunkin' Donuts
No.
with this guy. And I mean, again, it's private investigation. So there's a certain amount of it that has to be private. But I'm like, you couldn't have like brought me to the office. Like,
Right.
it was so weird. And the more I think about it now in hindsight, I'm like, this man could have killed me. Like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Quite literally. Yeah.
You were
like,
in danger,
Yeah.
brother.
So the reason I bring up red flags is because, again, this guy is of an older generation, not excusing his behavior
Right.
by any means.
Right.
And he was described to me when I talked to my trainer, because like I still didn't have a great sense of him. I was like, what's he like? Like, is he really harsh about this kind of stuff? The kind of stuff you ask about a boss just to kind of see like where
Just
you stand.
gauge it.
in a
You know,
new
try
job.
to get the temperature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was described to me as old school.
Oh.
And that was kind of like, that is a loaded term that says certain things to me, especially in that kind of realm of pseudo law enforcement. And like, and I mean, the red flag that came up in the interview process, because and again, why he was telling me any of this, I have no idea. But he had narrowed it down to me and this other girl who on paper was much more qualified than me, and he should have picked, but he picked my dumbass because I was a white man. He said strictly based off this woman's name, he's like, I'm not going to hire her. And I was like, okay.
Oh my.
And again, like, I had a major in English, minor in criminology. She was like full on criminal justice, like,
that is actually literally against every equal opportunity law and
Literally.
every work discrimination law. Like literally, you can't. That's the worst factor to be basing, aside from their actual race and ethnicity. That's the worst factor to base off your
Which again,
hiring
why
factors.
was he telling me that?
Because you're a white male.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he felt safe.
Yeah,
he felt safe.
apparently. But
Damn.
and again, I feel so shitty about it because I mean, at the time,
What are you going to do? Leave the fucking interview?
yeah, at the time I
Yeah.
needed a job, I wanted out, and I was like,
Yeah, I understand.
but it's something that me now, I'm like, you should have never let that slide.
Yeah.
But again, I'm going to throw hands in the middle of the Dunkin' Donuts that I'm
Dude.
being interviewed in. Like,
Right.
You learned in time,
Yeah.
and you learned what to look out for versus not what look out for.
Yeah.
So, kind of works.
Yeah.
Did you get to say all of like the good and bad of the job more than I think that was like?
I think, well, I didn't get to some of the other bad things about it. So like the schedule is definitely a huge thing that kind of like trickles into the rest of the bad things about it. Cause like your day-to-day schedule is very hectic, but also just like your actual daily schedule, like what you're doing in that car for however many hours you're in there. Because I had some jobs where, like these people are out all day, they're stopping to get lunch somewhere. I'll just sit in the restaurant and get lunch myself. You know, like I'll just hang out and just pretend to be a regular dude. But it's not like I'm clocking out for my 30, like I got to kind of be
You'd have to
present,
jump. You'd have
you know?
to jump right away.
Yeah.
Like your food could be there or just getting there. And you're like,
and I'm scarfing down a cheeseburger like, I got to go.
Yeah.
Like,
put it in my pocket.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're stuck in that car all day, that's where you're pissing. Like that's
Wow.
I had bottles
Oh.
in the car for that
Holy
purpose.
shit. Wait, that's actually like inhumane. What the
Yeah.
fuck?
Because
they-
it's again like I wouldn't want to lose the person. I wouldn't want to put myself in a position where I even though I did lose people anyway, and it's hilarious, but
Oh
like
my God.
that's the kind of shit that you have to be prepared to do in order
Yeah.
to stay.
I get it, but
I never
holy
shit in my own
shit.
car, though. Let's be clear.
No,
like
I mean,
if it was
right,
coming
right.
to number 2, I was stopping somewhere. I'd be like, "Listen, I don't care." Like
You should have gotten one of those little camping
Little-
toilets,
little
like the
camping
foldable
toilets,
ones
yeah.
you put in your car to keep
Oh
them in
my
a plastic
God.
bag or something. Oh my gosh,
But
that's
yeah.
wild.
Not the camping toilet.
So I have a question. How would like a person like me, for example, hire a private investigator?
That part of it, I have very limited knowledge of.
Okay.
So, as far as my understanding of how he got jobs, I think he had made a reputation in that specific field of investigation. And if a company had that specific issue with one of their employees, they would know to go to him specifically.
Oh, okay. So he like had ties with like businesses
Yeah.
and other
Companies
aspects.
and stuff,
Okay.
yeah.
And I would imagine it's kind of similar to lawyers practicing specific types of law and like therapists dealing with specific types of clientele, I guess. So I think it would be a clientele based thing. And then depending on what you were trying to investigate, you would kind of go from there. Because I would imagine, especially in this day and age, they have to have some sort of online presence as far as like, this is me, this is what I do. But, you know, any more questions than that would probably be
Right.
an interview basis where they're like, all right, what are you trying to find out? You know, like, what are you willing to? Because I imagine there's some sort of scale of pay depending on what you're trying to get investigated. And they're probably trying to figure out, well, is this worth my time? Like, what am I, you know, who am I putting on this? That sort of thing. But again, that's speaking from, I had no knowledge of that sort of thing. I was just I guess, for lack of a better term, boots on the ground guy.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Entry level.
I have another question. What would you tell people that you were doing for a living? Because you can't just be like, I'm a PI.
I mean, I would tell people.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not like scary.
It's cold as hell.
I mean,
maybe
it's cold as hell.
It was definitely a conversation starter.
Yeah, for sure. I get that.
But I mean, at the time, like, I don't remember talking about it too much, which I've talked about it so much more in hindsight than I ever did when I was
When you were
actually doing it.
Yeah.
But it was never something where people would ask me and I'd be like, oh, I'm in finance or something like
I'm an
that. You know,
accountant.
I'm an
Right.
accountant,
Yeah.
you know.
I'm about to start telling people I'm a cashier.
Yeah. But like, yeah, it was never something I felt like I needed to hide, because it wasn't like oh, you could be next or you're going to rat me out or this or that. Like,
Right.
especially just because it's not like I was operating under my own license and I would have any sort of presence that people would know me for. I'm just some guy that worked under the license of some other guy that, you know.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Do you think there's like a like, I guess you keep mentioning that you were like an entry level
Yeah.
PI. Is there like a specific way up the ladder?
So the only growth through my personal experience was basically, he had told me, you know, you spend about 5 years in the field doing these kinds of jobs, and then you would get to be basically like the man in the chair dispatch type of person.
Oh, interesting.
So that would be
like the
all,
coordinator or triaging and stuff like that.
So like all the
Yeah.
back end research that goes into it, that's the position that you would strive for, at least in this specific company. Because he introduced me to the guy who did that, because he did all the administrative stuff. And I mean, I'm talking about a company of maybe like, I would imagine, including all the PIs on the ground.
I was gonna say, is it like small
15
form?
to 20 people,
oh my
maybe?
God. Talk
Yeah.
about small.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because they operated out of this office that was basically like an old house that was converted into an office. So it was very like, I imagine,
It's very discreet.
yeah,
by the
very
way.
discreet.
It's very cool.
I imagine the guy had been doing it himself for a long time, but hadn't had a team for a long time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the more I think about it now, especially 10 years past, I'm like, he was definitely figuring some shit out, because there are so many better ways to do this kind
Right.
of stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, I could have given him a couple pieces of advice, literally just from the shit that I've said. Like,
Yeah.
give your people a fake license plate.
Yeah.
Write them a letter that's like signed by a notary. What is it called? The notary.
notary.
Oh, the
people.
notaries.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like by a notary
yeah.
that says that, like, this and this and that or whatever, and this is my real license plate in case if you get pulled over.
Yeah.
But this way, so that like people can't follow you back, or give them fucking rental cars, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, rent a different car every week and just be like, here's the fucking keys, go do your job for the day.
Right, yeah.
You know what I
Which
mean?
points, again, more to my thinking now, especially in hindsight, that he probably was just starting up in this realm of it. I mean, he had to at least have been doing it for a decent amount of time to train the staff he
clientele.
already had
Yeah.
the clientele, but it's not like he had a fleet. Like, he was using his own cars as well as we were using our own cars.
That's
so
so sketchy.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of times that I'm literally just like, I am such an active, like, person when I'm driving. I mean, it's probably because I'm a professional driver, but like the amount of times that I am checking my mirrors and I can tell. I actually got really freaked out the other day. I went to Target before I went to this coffee shop to go and do like a class or whatever thing that they were doing. It was called a public pour.
Yeah.
And they basically like teach you how to do these different forms of like making coffee and shit. And somebody that was in front of me in the line at Target also went to the coffee shop, also took the fucking class. Like I was like, huh? And then they also stayed at the coffee shop like
if
afterwards.
I was a private investigator,
like,
I'd be doing that shit too. Because if like my fucking person went to a trampoline park, I'd be like, my bitch ass is getting in that trampoline park.
right.
You're in there with the camera bouncing up and down. Like,
I have a camera
got
on
you
my
now,
chest.
bitch.
Oh my god, the private investigators nowadays would probably be so happy that they have the fucking Ray-Ban Meta glasses
Oh
or
my
whatever.
God.
Oh my god.
Yo,
Ray-Ban, please sponsor this episode.
Oh my god. Right. Thanks, Ray-Ban. Please,
Yeah,
please
yeah.
give us.
I
Please give
want
us
those
AI.
glasses so fucking
Give
bad.
us the AI powered glasses, please.
Yeah, I want those glasses so fucking bad. But what would be hilarious is that like if I actually recorded my point of view, other people would see that I can actually see my curls in front of my face. Because like I can see them, like they're just here and
just
here,
right there.
They make a little frame around my
Yeah.
peripheral
I would be
vision.
like, Ray-Bans, edit out my bangs, zip, and then it like edits it out of
fucking
like the
laser
footage.
across my forehead. Oh my gosh. So you've mentioned multiple times that this was not a career field that you actually wanted to be in.
Not
What
at all.
what made you decide that was not the path for you?
So the biggest thing was the schedule was because especially at the time, like I was trying to get my shit together, get my life together.
And you had a partner that you were about to marry. Yeah.
And we both just felt like it wasn't something that I could build around. Like I was constantly stressed out. Whenever I wasn't on a job, I was worrying about the next one.
Bringing work stress home with you is so overrated. Like,
and they were actually one of the biggest voices pushing me to be just like, don't fucking do it then. Like,
your partner
stop.
was, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what it came down to for a couple things were, like I said, so like with that one job where I fucked up, that was the first time of like 2 or 3 jobs where I was already kind of like mentally checking out, and my boss had gotten like less and less patient with me to the point where I finally had this final job, and this was another Pennsylvania job. So I'm over the bridge. I'm like in this neighborhood. I'm walking around, and again, another case where I don't see this guy all morning.
Right.
So I'm forced to initiate some sort of contact.
Terrifying.
Right. So I decide to try the whole envelope trick. So I'm like, hey, neighbor down the street, whatever, think our mail might have gotten mixed up. Is this you? The guy, has the door open maybe a couple inches, which good on him. Like, I wouldn't fucking answer the door for a dumbass like me if I was doing that shit. So,
but you have a friendly face.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah.
Legitimately, when I was first hired and I expressed my reservations about like having to lie to people and shit like that, my boss literally said to me, he's like, oh, well, you have an honest face. People will believe you. And I was like, okay.
Yeah,
That's not manipulative at all.
Right.
So this guy, he finally opens the door. He's like, what the fuck is that? Just snatches the envelope out of my hand, slams the door in my face. And I was like, okay, so this job is done. Like,
right.
I'm not pursuing this further. Like, he's already on edge. Like, there's no reason for me to irritate this guy anymore.
Yeah.
I called my boss and I told him, like, hey, I tried the letter thing or whatever.
I tried what you gave me.
He took the letter and I wasn't able to like positively ID the guy.
Right.
And at this point, my boss was he just straight up lost it. This is the first time I've really been like legitimately just yelled at, other than by my parents.
Wow.
But that's how it felt.
In a job sector.
Yeah.
I mean, not that it's right in the military, unless it's the military, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, why the fuck are you yelling at me?
Yeah.
And I mean, in
Yeah.
police work, like, I can understand that the environment itself gets very heightened in stress.
Yeah.
And just overwhelming like feats, but like there's just when people are going through the same shit as you, why are we yelling at each other? They're your employee. Like
I've been yelled at like one time at work, and it was so indirect. We were supposed to do this really fucking big stunt this one day, and it was on my birthday. I will never work on my birthday ever again. Don't call me on my birthday. I'm not doing it. But
you yelling at me on my birthday, you getting fucking punched, dude.
Right.
What
Coming
the
to my
hell?
birthday to yell at me on my birthday
shit.
with a birthday.
Right. Birthday bitch. For real. So I feel like, yeah, this one time I was like about to do this really big stunt, one of the biggest stunts I had ever done in my entire life. And the director and the coordinator were just screaming at the top of their lungs like all day. And I remember my dad was also on this job with me, and this was the first time I ever felt like a child at work, but I literally like broke down crying, and I was like, I don't want to do this stunt anymore. Like, I'm too stressed out. This environment is like wild. I can't do it. I can't imagine like actually personally being yelled at work, because it had nothing to do with me. It was like everyone around us, like welding the roll cage, all kinds of stuff, whatever. And I was just like, I can't do this. And I'm also never working again on my birthday, because what if this goes to shit? Like, I was like I cannot have a bad birthday.
Now
it's
your
not
birthday
fair to me.
is just the anniversary of that one time.
The anniversary of when I got yelled at.
Anyway, so he was yelling at you.
So he's just like, I can't believe you fucking did that. Like, what's the one fucking rule with the envelope? I don't care if that fucking guy like had you at gunpoint. You don't give them the fucking envelope. Like, he was just laying into me, and I was just like,
what are you supposed to do? Fucking grip it with your life after you just told him this is your mail?
So he told me, he's like, that's it. You're done for the day. Pack it the fuck in. Go home. Like, and I was like,
shit.
Okay, cool. Later that night, I think, or the next day, like, I told my partner what happened, and they were just like, he sucks, first of all.
Good for them for being so supportive.
And like, at that point, I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I thought this was supposed to be like my career. It's not working out. Like, this is what I wanted to do, I thought.
Yeah.
And they were like, it doesn't matter. Like, we're still living at home at this point, which is, a privilege to have at that point in time. And like, I was trying so hard to get out of the house, and I'm like, you know what? I don't think my dad would mind if I stayed for a little bit longer to figure my shit out. So I called the guy up, and I was like, hey man, I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'll finish up the report I got, and I'll drop off my shit. But, thanks for the opportunity. Yeah. Tried to keep it as civil as possible. And he was like, all right, sounds good. And then went and, I gave him the rest of my SD cards with any footage that I hadn't handed in already. Gotcha. I gave him the cameras back. And it was so awkward because, he didn't look at me. He was just like, he just looked to make sure I had all the stuff in like a nice, neat little pile. Everything that he gave me, I gave back. And I was just like, all right, bye. And he was like, and just head nod, nothing else. And I was like, cool.
Shit.
Thanks, man.
So he didn't value you as an employee.
No.
Even have respect for you enough to just like, because you were respectful enough to at least tell him, because I would have just not shown up the next day.
Which is fair.
You had to return the stuff.
Yeah.
Fair enough. They would have came after me. That's true.
Yeah.
So then never mind. Maybe I wouldn't have done that. But
you would have left that shit on the porch.
I would have put it in a little brown bag and
not gone outside. Not gone inside.
Yeah. I don't really feel like I have a lot to ask, but this is like definitely one of the last things I definitely want to ask. Like, the whole spectrum of this job was pretty much tainted for you in some way, shape, or form. But if someone is still very passionate about doing this,
you got the same question I got. Are you going to say what would be your advice for somebody?
Yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So
what would be your advice for somebody that wanted to be a private investigator other than don't do it?
Yeah.
So
be careful.
Like if you wanted someone, like if you were talking to a friend that like, you were like, oh man, like I was a private investigator once, like you shouldn't do it, but they're like really dead set, because you can only tell people so much, right?
Yeah.
If they were really dead set, like what advice could you like literally lay out for them? So in any capacity,
I would say, I don't think it's, I mean, other than, we keep talking about the price point of it, of what we're getting paid. Like, don't take it for that is my first piece of advice. Okay. Is like, maybe, because I was young looking for a job straight out of college, I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And I didn't really put in enough research to is this a good place to work? Baseline questions. I was just kind of like, this is my opportunity. Got to start somewhere, put in my dues, Are you probably going to have to do some kind of entry level bullshit? Yeah, but maybe it won't suck as much. I think it was more because I said it earlier, like I feel like you have to be a very specific type of person to do the kind of job. And I thought that I was like cold enough to do the job and like,
no, you're so warm and fuzzy.
Thank you. I thought I was, prepared for the type of person that I would have to be to do the job successfully. Yeah. And I did not like trying to be that person.
I gotcha.
So if anything, because for a long time, I literally saw it as this huge failure. Because especially at that time in my life, I was like, oh, I'm going to move in with my partner. Like, we're getting married or we had just been married and like we're trying to get our shit together. And then I'm like, oh, I got this big boy job and we're about to get an apartment. And then I was like, oh, but no, I can't handle it. And it's like, that's okay. Like, it's okay to say that and admit it is like, I'm not built for this,
Yeah, it's totally fine to like try something and change your mind.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing wrong with changing your mind or realizing that that's not something that's like gonna suit you well. And I feel like people unfortunately like push themselves into a position way longer than they really should a lot of the times, especially if you shouldn't have to like force yourself to love something or like something or someone. You know what I mean? Like you just shouldn't do that to yourself. And I feel like that's something a lot of people do, especially because they get so nervous about like our time frames as like adults and like you know what I mean? Like just get like anxious about that kind of thing.
Also your degree, like even if you thought it bled into like your degree, so like what you thought like, oh shit, like this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life, how the fuck could I fail at this? You didn't fail at it. You just couldn't do that job. And that guy was a piece of shit realistically. And thankfully
he
like
was.
and thankfully and well but like thankfully you were able to separate yourself from that situation, because morale wise you probably would have done worse at the job had you gotten treated worse, but your degree is so broad too.
True,
so like at that time, it's a shame that you couldn't have jogged yourself down like a little bit.
I'm gonna be real too, because I mentioned some personal stuff at that point in time. I didn't have my shit together. I wasn't really finishing college for me, if that makes sense.
Oh, well, there you go.
I was more finishing college for my parents and specifically my mom. And I won't get into it, but that was a lot of the personal stuff that that decision
that
was
held
centered
you down
around.
there.
But if I could go back and do college again, 150% I would go back for music, because that's
amazing.
More,
there you go.
I mean, anybody who knows me knows that's more what I'm passionate about than English and criminology. Interesting subjects, but like, it's just, it's not my bag.
But
baby.
you're a musician, mate. You're a musician, okay?
I am an artist at heart.
That's another thing. Literally, the fact that I did not even get to introduce Will to the podcast.
Did we not introduce this whole hour in like so many change of minutes?
No, I introduced him, but just
It'd
in a
be funny
completely
if like
different
you
way.
didn't say my name at all. You're just like, anyway, so
Holy
we
shit.
have a private investigator.
Oh my god! No, but like
We got
realistically,
this guy.
I
on
didn't
the
even
mic.
actually get to introduce Will the way that I would normally introduce you to
shit.
most
True, yeah.
people. You know what I mean? Like, because
Yeah.
that's what this specific episode was about. I want to talk to you about music on the podcast at some point. But I was just like, I got so many questions. And then in addition to that, I feel like I'm going to talk to both you and Josh at the same time.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so I was like, I'm not
definitely.
prepared for that. I want to get to the PI stuff.
Hell yeah. But yeah, I guess despite all that, advice would be, and this is kind of broad stuff for any kind of job. Do your research, kind of have an idea of what you or who you're going to be working for, if you can get any of that information. Because again, this is private sector law enforcement stuff, so they're secretive by nature.
Yeah.
Understandably.
I mean, hopefully this helps if anybody is looking into an entry-level position like that. Like, this might be the type of shit you'll deal with,
Well, at
and
least
if you can handle it, cool.
Yeah,
If
for you,
not,
yeah.
maybe don't.
And at least they know what they're getting themselves into, because that's just as synonymous as to like what the episode when me and Paige were on,
Yeah.
about the military, like we had a great time in the military. She's still in, but like we had a great time, but there was also bad times. And I feel like everybody is afforded that opportunity to know that about any job. Like what's the pros, what's the cons? And everybody always says not to always make a pros and cons list, but that's also a way to kind of gauge where you're going in that
literally
sense.
also like kind of the fucking point of this whole podcast, because I feel like literally we are presented a polished, finished version of everything, and we get a fucking highlight reel of everything. Just like, again, you don't see the guy, I don't remember what the fuck the PI's name from Ginny and Georgia was, the show.
I don't either.
Which also, by the way, audience, if you haven't watched Ginny and Georgia, holy shit, is it binge worthy? Oh my gosh. But anyways, we don't see him doing all of this like computer kind of administrative kind of work and shit like that. You know what I mean? And like, we're
all
not
the boring
watching
behind the scenes stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
We're also not watching
all the
him,
hacking in and shit. Yeah, no, you don't see
and
that.
also like he's like only in his car for like 2 seconds, and then the person gets out, and then he follows him inside, and then also you're not watching him fail at making contact with this person. Like, we don't get his story, so I feel like that's why I thought it would be such an interesting thing to bring you onto the podcast. I do have 2 more questions for you.
Yeah, go for it.
Number 1, what do you wish that your family, friends, and like maybe like your partner would have known about your job at the time being that maybe they didn't know? Because maybe they just didn't ask you.
That is a good question. So I was very open with them at the time, especially because, I was going through it, and they were really the only people I could talk to about it because of the nature of the job. I mean, I talked to my partner about like pretty much everything that I've gone through, and like it was funny because when I brought up to them that we were going to be talking about this on the episode, they were like, wow, that really was like 10 years ago. Holy shit. Like, but I guess the biggest thing that I guess I would like people in general to know is just like, you're basically going to be living in your car day to day. Like, and that kind of ties into the other question of just like
what to expect and everything.
Yeah,
like
what
that.
to expect, know what you're getting into.
So essentially, you're telling them to approach their family like, I might not be able to be everywhere at every time.
You're not going to be able to have a lot of contact with them.
No,
definitely.
Because I feel like people get really sensitive about like not being able to get a hold of somebody.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, people get like offended and really weird about that kind of shit. We talked about that in Making Friends as Adults episode.
Yes.
This was not my last question, but I just thought of it right now. It popped in my head. Did you feel like gross? Because like you kind of probably feel like a little bit of like a stalker, even though you're getting paid for it.
So I think the biggest thing that, speaking from like an anti-capitalist standpoint, is just the whole job was on behalf of a company that is trying to prove that their employee is frauding them.
Which that's that specific company doing the specific thing. You know what I mean? Like not every PI is going to be doing exactly that, but still.
But it's just a matter of being, like you said, just stalking, light stalking, lightly stalking a person, and just being so, like, just completely bypassing that boundary of privacy that everybody is entitled to and takes for granted with people like me who did this for a living, even if it was just for a month. Like, I saw somebody's whole day that was, those moments were supposed to just be their own and whoever they shared it with willingly. And here I am with my camera and my piss bottles in my car.
Did that almost give you like a self-inflection too of like, holy shit, could someone be doing this to me? Not that you probably had any dirt on you. What's
so fucking funny about that is I had a fucking panic attack in a Wawa one time because I didn't even realize, this was years after I had left this job, but I was in the area where this office was that I would work out of and like drop my shit off to. And the guy who I mentioned, who was like the guy in the chair, the dispatcher, was literally just out at that Wawa buying snacks or something. I guarantee it. But I was like, I noticed him and I didn't, when you like recognize someone, but you're not sure where yet. And then when you finally clock them, you're like, holy shit. I had that moment.
Yeah.
And I realized it was him. And I was like, are you here for me? Like, I was just like, oh no. Like, did I forget to give something back? Like, what is this?
Oh no.
Or, like, too much. We got to,
especially because he could have literally been following you.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's
Put
literally-
fucking chloroform over your mouth and be like, he knows too much.
But yeah, so that was the moment I think it really set in for me after the fact, because I was still dealing with just the whole getting yelled at and like dealing with my boss and his bullshit and all that. And then I finally got out and I got another job shortly after, but it was just like the uncertainty of it. I was still dealing with that. And then it finally hit me when I saw the guy in a Wawa. And he and I made the kind of eye contact where I was like, oh shit, like he knew me too.
Yep.
Like, because this
Immediately.
wasn't so far removed that he would have forgotten about it.
Yeah.
And I assume it was relevant enough at the time that like, I can't imagine too many people were just dropping like flies and quitting in the fashion that I did, where I was just like, yo, I'm done. Like, I can't do this.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, so that was fun. It definitely made me feel very, very icky, very brother. I did not like it, brother.
Damn.
Which is it's wild thinking about having done that, and then my next job was at Wawa, just in a convenience store, and now, I do inventory analysis, and it's great.
A lot less stress to
Yeah, a
bring
lot
home
less
with you.
stress. Yeah.
Damn. My last closing question for you is, I think I know the answer to this, but was it worth it?
I think from a sense of self-discovery, like there were a lot of things that I learned about myself and just other people in general that I think are very helpful to me in years past that, and just in the present and moving forward. Is just like, I think that was a moment for me, just kind of like being able to finally know my worth and not take getting yelled at as like, oh, this is my fault. It's like, no, you're fucking crazy and you need to deal with some shit.
Right.
Which,
yeah.
I mean, either way, I realized that, in his eyes, I fucked up, but it was also just like, hey man, I'm saving you the trouble because I'm probably going to disappoint you again because I'm not cut out for this job, dog.
I'm sorry I let you down, but I'm going to let you know I will be doing it again.
For reasons completely within my control.
I will be letting you down.
I will be letting you down again. I don't know. I think it's informed me on both sides of the fence to just like not take shit from people who are irrationally angry at me, and also not take shit from people I've been irrationally angry at. Like it's
totally fair.
Again, I think it just ties into the like being able to stick to my values as far as like what I believe in. And like I had issues with that guy and the way he operated, and I was like, I'm not built for this job. I also just don't like you as a person, you know?
That is absolutely 100% fair
and valid. Yeah
because I mean, you're gonna be in jobs where you don't like your coworkers and you don't like the people you gotta work for, and you gotta deal with it. But I was like, again, I said it before, I'll say it again, for $17 an hour, brother, like at that time, it was like, wow, that's so much money. And now I'm just like, damn, I wouldn't even get out of bed for that.
Yeah.
Like,
hell no.
Go off.
Shit, my eyes wouldn't have even opened for that.
Yeah.
God. Josh, do you have any more questions?
Not that I can think of. I mean, it's real, like, especially because I know this was only for a short duration of time in your life that you did work here. I think you honestly, like, the fact that we were able to talk about it so long.
The fact that we filled an hour and a half
is honestly incredible. You were honestly scared. You were like, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to talk about.
Also,
and now you can see how.
I need to clarify. I was doing this job for literally a month.
But like, it's so crazy to me because like you really thought we weren't going to be able to talk about it.
Also, let me tell you something. I have no fucking notes about this episode. Holy shit. I'm not even really going to have to fucking edit this at all. Like, that's wild. This is the first episode that I'm not gonna have to edit because we didn't get off track.
And we didn't have to pause. We didn't have to like.
You
there
didn't
was
have to
like
go
a lot
to the
of
bathroom.
I didn't even have
You
to go to
didn't
the
take a
bathroom.
fucking
I've got
drink
the bladder.
of water. Are you okay?
I've got the
brother?
bladder of like a 5-year-old.
I am gonna take a drink of water now.
Yeah, go for it. Give us some ASMR while you're at it.
Wow, that's incredible. I can hear it in the headphones. That's amazing. You didn't have to do that. But
Huh?
Huh?
He hit him with a
Holy shit.
anyways.
Anyway, now that I ruined that.
No, I'm leaving that shit in there. I cannot believe this is going to be like the first episode I don't have to fucking edit.
That's gonna be good.
That's
gonna be good.
crazy.
You say that now, but then you're gonna listen to me just being like, "Oop," in between talking for like an hour and a
And
half.
then Will's gonna listen back to this episode and he's gonna be like, I knew she was gonna cut that shit out.
Like, do I really sound like that?
Oh my gosh. You guys, in this episode, like I said before, we didn't actually get a chance to really introduce Will well, but Will is an extremely fucking talented musician.
Yeah.
Like,
Stop
yeah.
it.
This was just like, I had such burning questions, and I remember the first time you ever talked to me about being a PI, like in the past, I was like, what? Like, I was like, literally, what the fuck? Like, I was like, there's no way I'm not gonna bring that onto the podcast, but like, I'm in awe. of
And
how well
honestly,
this
going
fucking went.
going forward, like I think it would be great to talk about the fact like that you are a musician, and
I
like I'm a
can't
musician
wait for
as
that
well. And
conversation.
we've both been musicians for many years, so I think and we
You
played
guys were like in a band,
and
or
we were in
whatever.
a band together, and so I think that would be really great for the people listening. Like, check Will's band out that he's currently playing in,
Yeah.
Wave Break, super
yeah.
awesome and super talented. And like, if you guys even want to hear an episode where we talk about music or being musicians or whatever the fuck you guys kind of really want, just let us know.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you have any closing thoughts, Will? You got anything you want to say? Hi, Dad.
Hi, Dad. Yes, that's about
Hi,
it.
Kelsey.
Hi,
Dad.
Kelsey.
Hi, Kelsey.
Kelsey,
Hi,
thanks for
Katie.
letting us steal Will for an hour and a half. Probably for the rest of the night.
I finally made it, guys.
Yes, Will made it.
Anyways,
Huh?
Damn, I feel like that's a wrap on this.
hell yeah. Any other closing remarks?
No, I'm fucking chilling. Roll that
Roll
outro
the
music.
outro music.
Are you fucking kidding me? No way. All right, talk to you soon on the next URL versus IRL. I said it before and I'll say it again. I have no fucking notes. The fact that I was able to ask Will like every single question, damn, there I go with the editing. The fact that I was able to ask Will every single question that I really wanted to, like you guys don't understand. I had so many burning questions about this specific episode that I was just like, I fucking need answers. Like I was like, we the people need answers. I need answers. I posted on the Instagram story multiple times asking you guys what questions you would have for somebody that was a private investigator. You guys asked and we asked and he responded. So hopefully you guys had a fun time on this episode listening to this. If you're thinking about being a PI, you're fucking welcome. Okay, because where else are you going to get that kind of information? To be honest with you, as always, I'm going to leave all of the information that you could possibly need from this podcast in the description attached to this episode. Thank you guys so much for Gideon almost fucking tripped over that wire. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us with whatever it is that you're happening to do, whether you're doing dishes, cleaning your room, cleaning your house, driving to work. I don't know what the fuck you're doing, but seriously, the fact that you guys would take the time out of your day to listen to me talk to my friends about this really cool shit, I really appreciate it, you guys. I wouldn't be doing it without you. So, as always, I will see you guys next Tuesday.